Today's notes are over graphing linear equations. The equation of a line can be written in the form y equals mx plus b. This is called slope-intercept form. Where m represents the slope and b represents the y-intercept. That's why it's called slope-intercept, because it gives you the slope and the y-intercept. All right, so first you need to identify the slope and the y-intercept. The slope is the number in front of the x term, the coefficient in front of the x term. So our coefficient of x is 2. So I need a fraction for a slope, so I'm going to make it 2 over 1. So whenever you don't have a fraction, when you have a whole number, you put that number over 1. The y-intercept is the constant number, the number that does not have an x attached to it. So my b is 4. So it's important to note that even if the equation was written in a different way, for example, it could be written as y equals 4 plus 2x. I switched the 2x and the 4 around. But this is not my slope. My slope is always the coefficient of x. It's always the number in front of x. So this is my slope, and this is my b. Even though I switched the order of them, it's still my slope, that's still my b. All right, so let's graph. So b, I like to think of b, that's where you begin on the y-axis. So you begin on the y-axis. So I'm going to begin on the y-axis at 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. My slope, I like to think of this as how you move. So you move, rise over, run. So I begin at 4. I'm going to rise 2, run 1. Now, when you run, you always start by going right. So rise and then run to the right. So I rise 2, right 1. Rise 2, right 1. So I haven't run out of room, so I'm going to do the opposite direction. Down 2, left 1. Down 2, left 1. Draw a line through your points and draw 2 arrows. All right, number 2. My slope is -3 over 2. My b is -3. So remember, b is where you begin on the y-axis. So I begin at -3. -1, -2, -3. Put a point. My rise is -3. My run is 2. So because my rise is negative, I go down 3. So start here and go down 3. Then you go right 2. Now, it does not matter if your slope is negative or positive. You always go right when you run. You always start off by going right. So down 3, right 2. Once you go right, then you're going to go left. Once you filled in the right side of the graph, go left in the opposite direction. You're going to go up 3, left 2. Draw a line with 2 arrows. All right, number 3. My slope, the coefficient in front of the x is -4. Now, whenever you do your slope, make sure you just use the coefficient. Do not put an x next to your slope. The slope is just the coefficient, not the actual x. Okay, here I do not have a b value, so I put 0. So I'm going to begin at 0 on the y-axis. Put a point. My slope is -4, but I need a fraction, so I'm going to do -4 over 1. So because my slope is negative, I go down 4, right 1. Down 4, right 1. Can't go down 4 anymore, so I do the opposite direction. Up 4, left 1. All right, number 4. I want you to try this one on your own, and we will go over it in class. All right, number 5. These are not in the form y equals mx plus b. They're not in slope-intercept form. So we have to change them to slope-intercept form. So notice how the x term is on the right side of the equation. So that's what I have to do first. I have to move this x term on the right side of the equation. How do I move a term on the other side of the equation? Well, you do the inverse. So this is a positive x, so I'm going to do negative x or minus x. Okay, x minus x cancels out. Bring down the y equals. Okay, so I'm going to bring down negative x, and this is a positive 3, so I'm going to put plus 3. Now the y is by itself. There's nothing in front of the y, so I have y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to list my m and my b values. Okay, there's no coefficient in front of the x, so what's my m? Where if there's no coefficient, you put a 1. In this case, it would be -1. So my slope is -1, and my b is 3. Okay, remember you need your slope to be a fraction, so you're going to make it over 1. Okay, begin at b, begin at 3 on the y-axis. 1, 2, 3, put a point. My slope is -1 over 1, so I go down 1, right 1. Always start off by going right. Okay, once you go right, then you go left. All right, number 6. It's not in slope-intercept form. I have to get it in y equals mx plus b form. So the first step is to move the x. So if this is a positive 3x, I'm going to do minus 3x or -3x. Okay, note you always do what's in front of the x term. Even though this is minus y, I don't care what's behind it. I have to look at what's in front. What is the actual 3x? It's a positive. So if it's a positive, I have to do negative. The zero's out. So I'm going to bring down my y equals -3x minus 6. Now, make sure you never combine these, never add them, because I can't actually add -3 and -6 because they are not like terms. This one has an x, this one does not. I just copy them down. All right, I made a mistake here. I did not bring down the negative. So make sure you do not make that mistake. If you have a minus y, you have to bring down that negative. All right, the y is not by itself because it has a negative in front of it. So you have to get rid of that. This is -1 times y. Do the inverse. Divide everything by -1. So y equals -3 divided by -1 is +3. -6 divided by -1 is +6. So m equals 3. So I'm going to make it 3/1. B equals 6. So I begin at 6 on the y-axis. Make sure you always begin on the y-axis. You never begin on the x-axis because this is y equals. I'm focused on the y. It's the y-intercept. Okay, the slope is 3/1. So I'm going to go up 3, right 1. I ran out of room. Now go opposite. 1, 2, 3, 1. Down 3, left 1. All right, we will go over number 7 in class.